Alrighty, I'd say get your caffeinated beverages ready, but it's 3 p.m. Easterns on a Sunday, so I think we're a little a ways from that. So, welcome to I guess what we're going to call the Sunday afternoon soapbox or the Saturday after morning soapbox. But either way, sorry for this being a little bit late, guys. I ended up just basically not being in town for basically this entire weekend, so that's why I wasn't here. I don't know if I actually mentioned it last week. I know I was supposed to, and I don't actually remember if I did. So if I did, my apologies. Was planning on just pushing this for next week, and then I kind of got home, looked at my list of things that I had for the show, and I'm like, no, there's too much to sit on. And quite frankly, this is going to be such old news by the time next Saturday rolls around that it's like, dude, if I don't do this now, it's pointless. I might as well just delete the list. So a lot to talk about. Pretty much all of it gaming, unless I need a little bit of extra time, in which I'm probably going to talk a little bit about pro wrestling because that's my other bit of nerdom that I haven't thrown into this podcast just yet. But we're getting to that point that, well, WrestleMania is next weekend, and there's a lot of thoughts I have on that. So we'll see what happens. But right off the bat, I want to talk about two topics that people have been unnecessarily upset about, not to mention something that really isn't that big a deal, and I think people kind of overreacted to. I know, shocking, the internet overreacting to things. First I want to touch on is Final Fantasy XIV Online, and anybody who plays that game immediately knows where I'm going with this. Obviously, if you're out of the loop, they're adding, with the new expansion, I believe it's called Stormblood. I might be wrong on that. I might be mixing it up. I haven't played the game since it first came out. I got a free trial, but I love it. I just can't justify paying the monthly fee for it all the time. And it's been the same with that way with any MMORPG. I already, spend like the $10 a month or a little bit less just to play PlayStation Online, and I can play a lot more than just one game. So my brain's just like, I can't. Especially if I could play Final Fantasy XIV on my PlayStation and not get charged any further, I do that. But it's weird to think that I could play PlayStation Online and play Final Fantasy XIV and be playing an online PlayStation service that I'm paying for and still paying for that matter, the extra like $10, $15 on top of that for the game itself. It's like, that makes no sense. I can't do that. But they're adding two more races in, and anybody familiar to like the old tactics games know at least the Vieira for sure. And the Rothgar, I don't remember if they've been in other games. I'm going to quickly type that in. It might just be an online only thing that they've appeared. I'm not finding anything immediately, but either way, the Vieira have always been around. They've been around since, I don't know if they were in the original tactics because I never played it, but I know the Vieira were in Tactics Advance. I know they were in Final Fantasy 12, and they've kind of pushed them further in, with 14 going back to Ivalice. So there definitely was an excitement to seeing some more races because, again, it keeps the game a little more vibrant. You can have a new character to create and mess with armor sets you haven't seen before and all that jazz. And the Vieira and the Rothgar are gender locked. The Vieira are just women, and the Rothgar are just men. And from that point alone, because we know exactly where that debate's going in, I'll quickly say this. I absolutely understand from a game perspective that it's really dumb that you can only have one gender for a certain race, because we know even through the lore that there are male Vieira, but they're just kind of hidden away. From a gameplay perspective, that's really dumb for the player, because the player's like, but what if I want to play a boy Vieira? Because, I mean, who doesn't want to look at some bunny boy butt? You know what I mean? But in terms in general, like from the choice perspective, yes, it is really dumb that the races are gender locked. However, when gender comes into the equation, we know exactly what some people will also take it into the other direction is, well, they're gender locking races. How dare they not offer us multiple genders of each race? And it's like, okay, again, if that's your reasoning, settle down. You're kind of overdoing it here. But from a gameplay perspective, I'm absolutely in complete understanding of it. The problem is the people that, of course, are shouting the loudest are not the ones making that excuse, or not that excuse. They're not putting that reason forth. They're basically just saying that's sexist or whatever else. They're putting that into the ether. And again, they're the ones that scream the loudest, so that's the ones you see more often than not. I have not seen too many articles saying that I don't like the fact that, I can't choose. It's just people are saying more or less, I'm upset that there aren't other genders for this race, which also goes into the game too that we'll be playing, where they'll be like, well, why is there only two genders for this thing now? And we get into that further deep dive where it's just like, dude, I can't. My brain's gonna fucking shit itself. All in all, like, to be completely honest, Is it a dumb call on their part? Yeah, they should know better by now. But if your reasoning is just simply a sexism argument, then no, you're not guiding yourself in the right direction. This is the only way you can really look at this as an actual critique is if it's in a gameplay perspective, because you do, as a gamer, want the chance, especially in an MMORPG where creativity is the key. Like, you're trying to make your own distinct and unique character. You should have the choice. That's it. Nothing to that. But if you're going beyond that, then you're just reaching for things that aren't there, and you're trying to turn it into a political game, which, once again, we don't need to be pushing into video games the same way that we are with everything else. It's too much, and it needs to kind of, chill for a bit. And then, speaking of people needing to chill for a bit, PlayStation, I think it was either Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Monday. They had their first ever State of Play stream, which was not what people expected for, I think it's the best way of explaining it. They basically came in 20 minutes about, I think it was, and it was mostly stuff about their VR things that were coming out. It's a lot of indie games and maybe a little bit about Days Gone. And there wasn't really much else. Like, everybody was expecting Last of Us 2, Death Stranding, potentially like all these other games, like big announcements and surprises. And when it was over, everybody just immediately went to Twitter, went to social media, and just started just gushing about how bullshit it is that they wasted my time and they showed nothing, and fuck you, Sony. And here's just another case of Sony not listening. It's like, guys, it's not that they're not listening to their fans. Like, again, come on. I think after watching one State of Play, I got the sense in two directions here. One, State of Play may not be an E3 level presentation. By the way, Nintendo Directs aren't always shocking announcements. Let's also keep that in mind too. Everybody likes to pretend that every Nintendo Direct is like a fucking Christmas Day miracle sort of deal. It's not. Some of them are pretty dead too. State of Play may literally just be a 20 to 30 minute expose on games that are coming out in the next 3 months, which is basically the time frame that they were showing for almost all the games. Because they showed Mortal Kombat, which is coming out next month. They showed a bunch of indie games that are coming out in the next 3 months. I think the latest I saw was a game coming out in fall, which is not that long. That's 6 months tops, right? So this isn't going to be a special that's like, here's this game that's coming 3 years from now. Like, they weren't going to show Cyberpunk or anything like that. It was going to be games that likely they want to give you a heads up as here's what's coming out in the next few months so that you're aware of things that you should be buying, because we want you to buy games on our service, especially the indie titles, because Lord knows nobody knows what half of these things are when they get launched on the store. So that's a great way. As far as I'm concerned, they should be doing something like that every month, so that every month we know like a good chunk of the indie titles, especially that are coming out, because we don't know what any of them are. Like, there are a few on there that I'm like, that's kind of cool. It's still not for me, but it's great that those things are getting shown off, because no one would know what the hell it was until if they actually, in just some off chance, was browsing through the new section of the PS store and being like, well, what's this? It looks kind of neat, whatever. But at the very least, if you have a State of Play and you put these things on, it gives people a chance to be like, oh, okay, so that's something to look forward to in a couple of months. And if they still remember it, then they may actually be inclined to buy it, because now they've seen it and they're still interested going in, which is different than just browsing the store and just looking, well, I guess I can try that. Like, you're not in automatic hype mode for it. The other stance I had is that maybe, just maybe, Sony doesn't have enough to show, or doesn't want to show anything yet, because it's basically the end of March and almost nothing comes out around this time. Like, once we get to May, it's usually dead until we get to the E3 showcasing and we start seeing what's coming out in the end of summer and fall. It's very possible that just Sony doesn't have anything they want to show. And because they're maybe trying to stick within this 3 to 6 month gap, that they don't want to show anything prematurely. And even then, they may be doing a State of Play during E3. Like, they may do a Nintendo Direct, doesn't just have a show somewhere in that weekend. And Sony may do the same thing and just be like, you know what, this day on the Thursday or whatever, we're going to do our big State of Play, and it's going to be an hour special, and it shows a little bit more. It could be what they do, and that could be when you get your bigger games and your reveals and all that stuff. I don't assume that just because the first State of Play was not what people were expecting, because believe me, I wasn't expecting it either. I figured there'd be something to really sink my teeth into, and it wasn't there. But I also didn't leave like personally attacked or insulted, as some people seem to do, because again, the internet loves to overreact. I don't think State of Play is going to be like this every single time. People are trying to make the claim that State of Play is going to be this 20-minute boring indie fest every single time. I don't believe that's the case. I think it's going to have a lot more to do with the timing, what's coming on the horizon, and whether or not they have things they want to show. Because again, we're aware that the PS5 may be on its reveal soon. So why would they want to show us all these games when they could announce their new console that's coming out, say, next year? Because the rumor is 2020. I'll get to that after I finish there. They could have a new console out next year. That's when they would want to show all the new games that are coming out forward. So that gets you excited for the console. That's a whole different ball game. There's no reason to suddenly tell you about these games in the middle of March when nobody's really buying much, because there's not that much. Because let's be completely honest here, we're in a bit of a boredom period, because I've even looked at the list on Metacritic right now, and I'm going to pull it up as well and talk about it after I talk about the rumors surrounding the next-gen consoles. But it's not what it should be. It's definitely a quiet period until we get to E3 and maybe see when all the bigger games are coming, and at least we can have dates for a lot of things. But until then, it's kind of dead, and that's probably why the state of play was a little underwhelming, is because there just isn't anything to go for here. So as I was saying, talking about the potential of the next generation of consoles, there was a rumor going around, this is not set in stone or anything, but the rumor is that the slating for these new consoles is going to be next year, which they didn't give a specific time, but I would figure it means the fall, because you want that ready for the holiday season. And the big rumor is that these consoles are aiming to shoot for about 10.7 teraflops, or in Sony's case, there's even a further rumor that's saying they're trying to aim for 11.5. Now, for those who don't understand, if you are currently an owner of an original PlayStation 4, it is running 1.84 teraflops. Teraflops is basically, from what I understand, it has, because I mean, my technology expertise is a little short on that front, but it has a lot to do with its processing power in terms of rendering pixels really fast. So when you think about it, if the potential of even just going up from a PS4 to a PS5, and if the PS5 is around 11 teraflops and you're sitting at just shy of 2, you're going like not double and almost triple the power, if not more. Like, it's crazy to think that how much extra power it is. And if it really is that powerful, like let's say that the PS5 really does come out at 11.5. Right now, the PS4 Pro is at 4, and I think the Xbox One X, if I remember correctly, is around 6, I think. So, I mean, obviously they can do 4K for the most part. What 10 to 11 teraflops will certainly mean is that it should be no excuse at this point that games can't be 60 frames at 1080p. Bare minimum, we should be getting 60 frame per second games now. Does that mean 4K will be also 60 frames? That's a different story. But I think that what we'll see is that we might get the option that we do with the Pro and the Xbox One X, is that you can have the choice between either the 4K fidelity or the 60 frame, I think. Because I think they usually give you the choice of either having better frame rate or better graphics. And if that's going to be commonplace, and it's even without any issue of, because I know some games with both Pro and X have issues still, and some of them struggle powering some of these games. And, if we're basically doubling the power of those consoles, it should be set in stone that they're going to be able to do these a lot more successfully, especially in the early days when we're not pushing the hardware nearly as hard like we do usually at the end of a console's life cycle. So when we see what's coming up on the horizon, consoles certainly aren't dead yet, and they're going to be doing a good number to finally catch up a little bit. And again, PCs are always going to be the better option if you have the money to do it. Again, I don't have the money to spend on a giant PC rig that can do everything the way that it does. And even then, we find out that even if you have some of the better PCs, it's still potentially not going to run well if the hardware doesn't mix with the software right, So that's always a possibility. Or at the very least with consoles, it's cheap, and I know that generally speaking, any game that I put on it should work. Most of the time, if like 95% of the time, the game is going to work pretty damn well. So if that's going to be what we look at in the next little while, I'm very looking forward to that, because that's going to be a much needed, very needed upgrade, especially if we are going to get consistent 60 frame games, I'm not saying it needs to be 4K and 60 frames, because I've seen 4K TVs and I've seen 1080p. The difference is not as big as I think I would like it to be if I was going to automatically be like, okay, we need 4K and 60 frames. If it's very much like what the Pro and the X do right now, where you have the choice, it's just a lot more successful and guaranteed to work, then cool, I'm down. especially if the price is not over exorbitant like it can be. I don't want to deal with that. It's not in my interest to spend, an extra amount. I want the PS5, for example, to be very similar to the price of the PS4 when it came out. If it's maybe $100 more, then fine, I can eat that cost. Like, that's not the worst. But I don't want to see what happened with the PS3, where it was like $300 more than it ever should have been because it has a Blu-ray player and you should pay for that. No, we're not playing this game anymore. Even if they try to make the case of, like, the rumors also going around with the PS5 that they've got patents for not even just backwards compatibility for PS4, but to have emulation that will fool the hardware into thinking that you have PS3, PS2, even PS1 level equipment in your console, and it will play the game fine. Even if that's all there and I can play every game that I've ever owned on a PlayStation console on that PS5, I'm still not going to pay an extra $200 to $300 on top of the cost of a normal PS4 just because you did that. Not going to work. So PS5 needs to tread carefully and not make the same mistakes they did with the PS3. And I think, I don't know if it's Andrew House or no, it's not Andrew House. It's I can't think of the guy's name. The guy, I think his first name's Sean. I may be wrong, but either way, the guy who's usually, I think it's Sean Layden now that I think about it. He's already commented saying that we remember our mistakes from the PS3. We don't plan on making those. That doesn't mean they still won't, but at the very least, it seems like they're aware of what fucked them up the last time. And they don't want to go down that road because I'm sure it's pretty nice being king right now. And I think they would love to keep that momentum going into the next generation. So with that being said, like I said, I was going to go through the Metacritic list and just explain the boredom period right now. So I'm looking at everything coming out, and this is after April. So anything that's coming out now, and I'm scrolling down the list, and mid-April, and I still have nothing interesting to me. Mortal Kombat comes out April 23rd, but fighting games, the problem with fighting games is that I don't pay full price for them because I don't put the hours into it to justify that price. It's not that they aren't fun games. Hell, I still haven't played Injustice 2, and I want to play that. I still haven't played Dragon Ball Fighter Z, which every time they drop it to $35, I'm like, ooh, it's tempting, but I still don't want to have to pay another $15 on top of that for all the characters that I want. I wish they would just have one big combination and it'd be less than $40. If they had the entire thing for $35, I'm in. I'm so in. But I'm not in for $35 plus $15. I can't justify more than $50, even more than $40, honestly, these days on a fighting game because I won't put the time into it. Because I'll basically play the story mode and then I'm probably done, except for the odd time I have company over and we want to play a fighting game for 30 minutes and play a couple matches. So Mortal Kombat will not be one that I get right away, and it may be one that I take a couple of years to get. Days Gone is also out on the 26th. That is a potential buy for me, which is funny because I had no interest in it at first. And then the longer that the game has been delayed, the more that people are now playing what's very close to the finished version and being like, this is actually really good. And as we've seen, PlayStation has been rocking their first-party single-player adventures, so there's a very good chance this game may actually be better than we all thought it was going in. May 7th, Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 2, which is a big thing for me. I played the original 2 on PlayStation Vita, or in my case, PSTV. I never finished the second one, so it gives me an excuse to go back and do it again. Rage 2 is on the 14th of May. That's still a maybe. I mean, I like the original game, but I don't know if I feel like paying full price for that one. Hell, I'm still waiting for Spider-Man to drop enough in price that I'll pick it up and play it because I'm not convinced I'm going to absolutely love it, so I don't really want to take the risk of paying a lot of money on it. Let's see. As I scroll down a little bit further here, we're in June now, and I'm not seeing anything. There's Judgment on the 25th of June, which is made by the same guys who make Yakuza. I'm not sure if that's going to come out, though. Because of the issues that are going on with the character that is the voice actor in Japan got busted for cocaine. Although I don't know if that necessarily is the character that's the issue. If they're trying not to sell in Japan, I guess, so they can redo the voicing. Maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe it'll be fine here in North America because it's English translated. But then again, because they do have, actually in this game, they are having different language actors. So there will be an English dub for Judgment, unlike Yakuza, it doesn't. It's just subtitled. I would still rather play in Japanese because I think they do it a lot better. Because here's the thing, and somebody asked me a while ago, actually, because, I have people that watch anime, and, there was a conversation that came up about why anime seems to sound better in Japanese than it does in English. And, well, the fact is, just watch what happens in Dragon Ball Z. Like, you watch the behind the scenes of Dragon Ball Z when they do it, it's a guy in a booth, and he's reacting to the scene as it's happening. He watches the video and then he reacts to it as it's his turn. Whereas in Japan, a lot of anime is done in group sessions. So they're all in the room with each other. So they're actually feeding off each other. So it's natural. I think that's a big part of why the Japanese stuff ends up sounding better, is because they're being done as if they're there in front of each other, because they actually are there in front of each other. So there's that part. So maybe Judgment does come in a little bit late because of the voice acting. I don't know what's going to happen on that front. We haven't heard anything that says they're pushing the North American date back yet. So I don't know if that's happening or not. Oh, there we go. Even the list for Final Fantasy XIV, it's Shadowbringers. So I think Stormblood might already be out. That's probably why I was thinking it. But yeah, Shadowbringers is at July 2nd. Like I said, I won't be playing those because I can't. And then after that, that's it. Like, sure, Shenmue's out in August, and Catherine's finally, the redo is out in September. But from here all the way to the fall, there is not one single game aside from Judgment that I'm really into getting pretty close to launch. Like Judgment, I'll probably still wait for it to drop, say, $20. But there's no game that I'm playing or looking forward to, for that matter, that I'm dead set on getting as soon as it comes out. So it tells you that right now we're in a bit of a quiet period. And like I said, because the PS5 is potentially on its way out, they're probably holding a few things back. I think we'll probably find out around the summertime, because I assume they're going to do something. Even though they're not going to have a showcase at E3, they're probably going to put out some sort of a stream and just say, hey, like, here's what our plans for the fall are. That'll happen eventually. Maybe we find a couple of things to sink our teeth into. But right now, it's a bleak period right now. At least for me, I don't know what everybody else is feeling like, but for me, it's pretty darn quiet. I'm going to be either trying to finish a lot of old games that I just haven't gotten to, or I'm probably going to be watching a lot of TV or anime that I've been meaning to try and at least have some extra time in to do that. I've even hopped back onto Destiny 2 and put a few hours back into it because I could bring my level from I think it was like 500 something to 640 really quick because they had quests to help me do that. I think that's probably going to be what I do for the next few months, because it doesn't seem like anything big's coming out. And it's kind of a shame because, you want to always be going after the next thing. But at the same time, as somebody who's penny pinching, which, by the way, I'm still running off my laptop's web camera, and in retrospect, it doesn't look that bad. So I may stick with this for a while until I can figure out if I want to upgrade or not, because I don't feel like spending $100 on a really good webcam again, because I can't really justify it at this point. That's probably the plan, is just to, not spend a crap ton of money on games and just, chill out for a bit and maybe finish a few things that I've been meaning to finish, which would be nice because there's a lot of stuff that I should be finishing. All right, let's see. You know what? I'll talk about WrestleMania. I was going to talk about Horizon Zero Dawn because I finally finished it, but I'll save that to the end because at least then I can put a spoiler buffer in. So I was kind of right on the money in thinking most of these topics would take me about 5 minutes a pop. So we're at about what? Just after 23 minutes? Yeah, I can probably get a good hour out of the rest of this. So let's see. WrestleMania is next weekend. I've been a wrestling fan since as long as I can remember, since I was maybe 5 or 6. As a wrestling fan, it's strange because a lot of people are not going to believe this. I became a wrestling fan after watching my dad's tape of WrestleMania 9, which universally in the wrestling community is known as either one or the worst WrestleManias ever. And they're now hitting 34, I think this year it is. And it's a really bad show. In retrospect, I've rewatched it and it's terrible. I don't know how the hell what I found in it as a kid, I'll never know. But I've been a fan pretty much my entire life. Grew up in the Attitude Era, loved me some Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Chris Jericho, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, all those guys. There was a period right around the time that John Cena started his tweener reign, and I went away. And I went away for a while, and I went to college, and I have a friend of mine who I went to college with, who is on the indie scene. You may know him as Ethan Page. He's actually wrestling on Impact right now, which is one of the closest things to the second biggest promotion out there. He was actually on AEW's first All In show. He was in that over budget battle royal. He was one of them in there. And he got me back into wrestling because he would always bug us in class, like, hey, I'm doing a show here at this day. Like, you guys should show up and see. And we finally did it one time, and it was fun. Like, I was sitting way in the back, so we weren't getting the best view, but I kind of got an interest in it again. And then I finally watched another show, and got front row seats. And I'd never sat front row to wrestling ever. Any show that I went to when I was a kid was always at like Maple Leaf Gardens or the Sky Dome in Toronto. And it would be, we'd be up in the cheap seats. So you'd be seeing like little bits here and there. And, it's still cool as a kid, but I never sat front row. And to be right there as people were doing like suicide dives out of the ring and seeing it right up close, you're getting all the action. You can hear what the guys are saying. And it just clicked. And I went right back in. And right around that same time is when the CM Punk pipe bomb also came, which basically got me fully back in. And I've been always back in since. This year has been a weird one because WWE has been so bad since WrestleMania last year. WrestleMania for the last 2 years, in fact, have been terrible because they've gone through the same format. The first half is amazing, and then the second half is so bad, I just wasted 3 hours of my life, and I can never get it back. Last year, for those who watched last year's WrestleMania, all I was looking forward to by the end of it was just Braun Strowman's mystery partner, because I'm thinking, oh man, it could be somebody really cool returning or somebody debuting, something really cool to see, and it was a fucking like 10-year-old kid. And they did some weird, I thought it was a Make-A-Wish kid at the time, because I'm thinking, really, they're fucking taking a Make-A-Wish thing and giving him a title? Oh God, I don't know how I feel about that. And then even worse, no, it was just some random kid. I'm like, so what was the fucking point? And they gave up the titles the next night. So you're like, what was the point of all that? The kid, as we found out, was just like some referee's kid too. It wasn't even like some special guy. It was just a kid. And you're like, what? Why would we do that? And that was how that all went. And ever since then, it's been downhill constantly. The insult has always been there with WWE. They seem to really love insulting their fans and not paying attention to what anybody says. Because apparently they think their fans are so dumb that they need to shorten names. Like, what have they done? They took Antonio Cesaro and changed him to Cesaro. That's one of the few ones that worked. They took Tucker Knight and Otis Dozovich, who are heavy machinery, and just put them down to Tucker and Otis. They've taken Andrade Cien Almas, who is a fucking legend in NXT after they called him up, and they left him alone for about, let's say 3 to 6 months. And now he's just Andrade, which sounds dumb as fuck. Now, the most recent one is they have Mustafa Ali, who has been a fucking amazing story. And now his name is just Ali. So is he Aladdin? Is he Prince Ali? Is he fucking Muhammad Ali? Like, I think if they're imagine if WWE tries to trademark Ali because that's his name now and that's just his name. Can you imagine them trying to justify how they can trademark Ali? Can you imagine them trying to do that? Not to mention, it's just dumb as fuck. Why would you ever shorten a guy's name down like that? Do they forget that they don't have to pronounce the guy's full name every time they talk about him? It's like, great dropkick by Mustafa Ali. Like, they don't have to do that every time. They could just say, great dropkick from Mustafa or great dropkick from Ali. And then they do the also stupid thing they do where they have to give everybody nicknames. Like Kofi's, what was his stupid one that they talked about? The Dreadlock Dynamo or something, I think it was. And you're like, what? No one calls him that. Now every time Drew McIntyre comes out to the ring, they have to call him the Scottish Psychopath. And half the time, like, that's what they go with. They don't even call him Drew, or they don't call him McIntyre. It's like, and the Scottish Psychopath with a clothesline. It's like, guys, this isn't a fucking play. This isn't like, why are you doing this? You're sports entertainment. You know that there's one thing in that name called sports. Do you know how people generally call a sports game, like a baseball game, a hockey game, a basketball game, a football game? A lot of the time, they just call them by their last name. Great shot from Crosby. What a bucket by James. Actually, you know what? In LeBron's case, they probably say his full name most of the time. But in a sense, generally speaking, it's always their last name. What's wrong with just saying, oh, and the big boot from McIntyre? But no, they have to say the big boot from the Scottish Psychopath. It's like, no. Stop trying to brand everything. I know that their obsession is being able to take a hold of every person that they own. Because, again, the independent contractor thing's not a thing in WWE. But there's all these frustrations. And as I've said, the last year has been a nightmare. Like, I've tried to watch shows, and they've almost all been terrible. In all honesty, not counting NXT, the only show that was actually really fun to watch this year has been the Evolution pay-per-view. And that's probably because I had such low expectations going into that show that I was impressed. But other than that, like every other pay-per-view I've watched has been not great. Like the Rumble was a fucking joke. Everything has been terrible. Like all the things I've been looking forward to have been a nightmare. And WrestleMania, this year is the first time that I actually don't want to watch WrestleMania. And I probably will still end up doing it because it's more about hanging out with friends, but this is a bad year. As a wrestling fan, it's driving me crazy because I think WWE being so bad is making it really difficult for me to enjoy other bits of wrestling because I'm not watching New Japan Pro Wrestling as much as I used to. I haven't kept up with Lucha Underground at all, and I'm still a full season behind. You know, I'm looking forward to AEW, but wrestling is getting just destroyed for me because WWE has been so bad this year. And WWE is the main source. Like, that's where you're supposed to be going. And they're doing such a horrendous job. It would be like if you're watching NHL hockey and it's so bad that you would rather just watch, like, you would rather go to your local ice rink and watch a bunch of 13-year-olds play. It's insane. Like, you're supposed to be the best game in town, and they legitimately have most of the best wrestlers in the world on their roster, and they're putting out some of the worst matches, some of the dumbest storylines that we've ever seen today. And this is also counting the really cheesy 90s where they had a garbage man, a plumber, a dentist, an evil dentist for that matter, and other crazy, stupid characters because they were trying to appeal to kids. I'm going to say this again and again, and WWE is never going to figure this out until Vince McMahon probably hits the bucket, you know? But your audience is not kids. You want your audience to be kids, but your audience is not kids. Because let's be completely honest. We know what your demographic is, and it keeps getting older because they're the only ones that have been around to watch wrestling long enough to actually really get attached to it. You are creating such a bad product that kids are not going to watch it anyway because if you're not putting on amazing shows right every single week, they're just going to go back to whatever they're doing, and there's a million other things they can watch. Not to mention, they're all playing Fortnite or other things too, so they're already distracted elsewhere. So you better really put together a good show to get them interested, and they're not doing that. They have no stars. Everybody is so down the middle with their booking that there's no stars. You can claim that Roman Reigns is a star. You can claim that Seth Rollins is a star. You can even claim that AJ Styles is a star. Brock Lesnar is the only thing that they have that's really a star, and he's not a star because of what WWE's done. He's a star because of what he's done in the past. Everybody is like good. Like that's in the fans' minds, everybody is like, oh yeah, I kind of like this guy. There's no like runaway. There's no runaway guy anymore. And it's insane. Like the only reason Kofi Kingston is getting that rub is just because the fans are getting behind an underdog story. But I guarantee you, assuming Kofi wins the title at WrestleMania, which quite frankly is the only reason I want to watch the show, it's going to be a great moment, but come back to me 4 months later, you're going to be really cheering for Kofi as much as they are now? No, they're not. They're going to move on to something else again because they don't know how to make a star anymore. They're pushing everybody just enough so that people like them and want to buy their merch. The problem is they don't have a Rock or a Stone Cold. And the reason also is probably because they don't want to have another Rock and Stone Cold because they'll just leave. Look at what The Rock and Batista have done, for example. They don't have to live in WWE's bubble anymore. And that's what WWE wants. They want to control everything. Nobody can be a big star because they'll leave and do something else and make them look bad. So going back to WrestleMania, like let's even pull up the card. And I'm going to go through everything and tell you why everything is so bad. Okay, so I made a mistake. It's WrestleMania 35. I mean, that's how much I haven't been paying attention because they also, it's another dumb thing that WWE's done. They don't want to number their cards anymore for WrestleMania because they don't want to make it seem like they're old. It's like, no, what that tells people is that you've been doing this consistently for so long that people are aware that your product must be really good because this is now your 35th straight fucking year doing it. But no, they don't want to be looked at as old. They don't want to, like, no offense, Vince, you're old as fuck. So is everybody else that's in your group. So stop pretending. You're old. Your company is old. Your company's been around a lot longer than WrestleMania has been around. So don't kid yourself. So anyways, start from the bottom up here. So Obviously, there are the two battle royals, one for the women and one for the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Now, I saw a comment from one of the women, Naomi, saying that, oh, thanks for giving us, another just silly Rumble, like we don't have anything better to do. I know they're trying to play the we're women, why aren't you, we got the main event and yet you're still not giving us any other matches, because I don't think there's any other matches on the card other than the tag match for the new tag titles. Yeah, it's just the main event between Rousey, Charlotte, and Becky, and then the 8 women tag team match. Naomi, let me make this pretty simple. A while ago, not everybody even got on the card of WrestleMania, which means not all of them got the WrestleMania paycheck. They don't have to put you in a battle royal. In fact, they can just have you sit at home. Is it upsetting that you may not have like a singles match or a tag match or something to do on the card? Sure, but you're on the card and you're getting paid now. So take that. Look at also you're in the main event. I'm going to get to that main event that I don't think should be a main event anymore, but that's a different story. But you have the main event at WrestleMania for the first time. You guys have made amazing progress in the last few years, especially. So just because you're on the Battle Royal does not mean you're getting a back seat. It just means there isn't another spot for you. And blame what they did with Asuka on SmackDown last week for why there's nothing else for any of the girls to do, because now there's not a second title match that they can do. That's on WWE. But it has nothing to do with being against women or anything like that. It's just there isn't another spot. This show is already going to be 6, 7, 8 hours long. They're not going to make the show an all-day affair just so you guys can all get matches. Stop. You're getting a payday. All you got to do is just work your ass off again for the rest of the year, and maybe you'll be the Kofi Kingston next year where you get to win a title at WrestleMania, which, in fact, I think you did, didn't you, Naomi? Didn't Naomi actually win a title at WrestleMania? Let's see. Naomi wins title at WrestleMania. Let's see. Or am I mixing it up with something else? Maybe she won it just before or something like that. No, she won the SmackDown Women's title at WrestleMania 33 from what I'm seeing here. So, yeah. So you've had your WrestleMania title win. Sure, is it not the main event? No, but you've had that. You can't expect to be in that title match and winning every single time. Like, the Battle Royal just wasn't notable. If anybody should be pissed they're in that Battle Royal, it should be Asuka, because she didn't deserve that spot. She was literally the champion last week. But that's a different story. So the Battle Royals don't mean anything. We know that. The Cruiserweight title, Buddy Murphy, Tony Nese, it'll be a good match. The Cruiserweight matches are always really good. But that's it. There's not, I mean, I don't pay enough attention to 205 Live to know if there's a real story between the two of them. But at this point, it's a match, and it'll be a good match, but that's all it is. I don't know if this is still the announced match, because I know Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin was supposed to be, but I've heard things that they're supposed to be changing that. And again, unless it's Kurt Angle and, say, Chad Gable, or Kurt Angle and something crazy like John Cena, which would be amazing, because John's first match was with Kurt Angle. How cool would it be for John to be Kurt Angle's last match? That would be an amazing thing. The match would suck, but who cares? There's more story behind it. But again, I'm not that psyched for that match. Miz versus Shane, Falls Count Anywhere, don't care. Shane should not be wrestling anymore. I love Shane, but I don't need Shane on that card anymore when there's so many better guys out there that can be doing this. Like, for example, the new team of Aleister Black and Ricochet are probably at best in that Battle Royal. They could fill a better spot and have a great match on that card. But instead, we're getting Miz and Shane, which I like. Again, I like Miz and I like Shane, but I don't care. Women's tag, so it's Sasha and Bayley, who are the champions, against Beth Phoenix and Natalya, against Nia Jax and Tamina, and against the Iconics. No offense to Nia, Tamina, and the Iconics, but you don't deserve that spot. And even then, Phoenix and Natalya don't really deserve it, but I mean, Beth Phoenix is a Hall of Famer, so you can at least make that case. But what I wish we could have seen at WrestleMania was Sasha Banks and Bayley against Io and Kyrie, having basically the new thing of the Jumping Bomb Angels in NXT, because that's a real women's tag team that people would look as credible. Instead, we're getting Sasha Banks and Bayley against a bunch of teams that really shouldn't be winning that match, especially Beth and Natalya, because Beth is probably not going to be there full time anymore. So realistically, this match should mean nothing because Sasha and Bayley shouldn't lose those belts. So again, that match is just a placeholder. It's just a time sink. United States Championship, Samoa Joe and Rey Mysterio. That might actually be an interesting match because Rey's always had good matches with guys that should crush him. Just take a look at his match with, say, a guy like Undertaker. You can make it work. Like the first time he ever had a match against a notable main eventer, him and Kurt Angle, and it was an amazing match. So Ray can pull those out. That's a match that should be on the card. It's also for a championship, so it works. Intercontinental title, Bobby Lashley, who's the champion against Finn Balor. I like me some Finn, but Bobby Lashley is the absolute shit, and I have no understanding of why they signed him back, other than the fact that Vince likes people who have been clearly spending their entire day in a gym getting ripped and looking like bodybuilders. This isn't 1990 anymore, Vince. We don't care about these people anymore. We want people who can fucking wrestle. Bobby can't wrestle, and he can't even talk, which is why you put Leo with him. So that match I don't care about. Triple H versus Batista, Triple H's career on the line. Even then, I'm not really that interested. I mean, it's cool to see Dave Batista back, but I mean, that match is not going to be that great. Like, let's be completely honest. Triple H has not had a good match in a while either. So that match is more from a nostalgia standpoint. And sure, it works at WrestleMania. And I guess it probably would work on a normal card, but right now it's just, I'm so down on the product that this match doesn't even do anything for me. AJ Styles, Randy Orton could be a good match. That's a fair match. If that was for a title too, that would also be really good, but it's not. Either way, it should be pretty decent match. I don't know if they'll pull all the stops because AJ's kind of tired and Randy Orton decides basically whether or not he wants to try. So that's interesting. Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre should be an okay match, but again, it happens so late that it just doesn't have any value to it. This is the only match on the card I really care about. It's Daniel Bryan against Kofi Kingston for the WWE title. If Kingston doesn't win, this is a repeat of Triple H and Booker T, where Triple H said to Booker, because he's black, your kind of people aren't supposed to be in this main event. You're not supposed to win the title like this. Kofi needs to win this to set an example that they give two shits about their people. They probably don't, and Kofi will probably lose it within 2 months. But still, it's a good moment and should be. And I'm really excited just to be there for that moment. And that's really it. Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins for the Universal title. If Seth wins this match, what has been the point of Brock's booking this entire time? Because Brock has beaten Roman a billion times. Brock destroyed The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania. This is the problem that they had with Brock Lesnar to begin with, is they had him monster so many people. He monstered he monstered himself. He dismantled Braun Strowman, who is the biggest guy they basically have. What makes you think that Seth Rollins is going to beat him? So by that logic, Brock should be winning again. In fact, I still like the idea of Matt Riddle, who is also a UFC guy at one point, coming in and being the guy that dethrones him, because at least you can make sense of that, because Matt Riddle can legit knock you the fuck out. Rollins doesn't have that mixed martial arts background that we've been told about that makes us believe that he's tough enough to beat a guy like Brock. So, as of right now, this match, again, it doesn't feel like a WrestleMania match. It feels like a match for maybe a SummerSlam at best. But again, it doesn't feel like it fits, and I don't trust that the result's going to make any sense unless there's outside interference of some sort. And then finally, and this is where I'm going to focus my last bit of real attention here, Ronda Rousey against Becky Lynch and Charlotte for the Raw Women's title. Although I think now it has to do with the SmackDown title because Charlotte won that from Asuka. I don't know what the hell they're doing with it. This is my biggest complaint, by the way. I was so into a Becky Ronda main event at WrestleMania. And then they had to shoehorn Charlotte in because she's a fucking Flair. Don't get me wrong. I love Charlotte. But she did not need to be in this event. She did not need to be in this match. She could have fought Asuka for the SmackDown title again. And that would have been fine. But instead, they pushed this match. Well, that doesn't work anymore. And with the amount of turns, with the amount of suspensions and injuries and attacks and titles being vacated and all this other bullshit, all it was supposed to be in the fans' mind was Becky was supposed to fight Ronda and wanted to beat the living shit out of her because she was the one stepping stone left to prove that she was, as Becky has called herself since the fall, basically, that she's the fucking man. Instead, we turn this into a fucking clusterfuck of storylines, of injury angles, of suspensions. Even Stone Cold Steve Austin in the days of all the craziness that happened when he was trying to get a title shot and St. Valentine's Day Massacre happening, him against Vince in a cage match, the Big Show, the Giant, Paul White, whatever you want to call him, debuts, throws Austin into the cage so hard that he only wins because the cage came undone and Austin fell to the floor. And he still gets his title match against The Rock at WrestleMania 15. The convoluted storyline to that was already crazy enough. This has gotten so out of hand that this isn't a match with a proper storyline anymore. This is a match that just went through a fucking dishwasher, got washed out, and now it's unrecognizable. By the Rumble, I was excited for WrestleMania with Ronda and Becky. And it's turned into so much of a clusterfuck that I don't care. And this is my problem with WrestleMania right now. I don't care. There's one match on the card I'm really looking forward to, and there's a couple matches on the card that might be fun, but this card is not going to be great. And this may be a really underwhelming WrestleMania all the way through. It really could. And that shouldn't be what WrestleMania is. That should be fucking Fastlane. That should be Backlash. That should be No Mercy. But that should not be WrestleMania. And the biggest problem with WrestleMania this year is it's very clear that when you look at what New Japan Pro Wrestling does, they've planned Wrestle Kingdom out. They've probably already planned the next Wrestle Kingdom in January next year. They're starting it now. And they're working their way towards it, barring injuries. WWE looks like they planned WrestleMania last week. At best, last month. It looks like they've been planning it since Fastlane, for example. Usually, you're supposed to have the seeds planted since SummerSlam, and you're working towards it. The Rumble is supposed to be the last transition before WrestleMania, and any shows in between are just the buffers. But instead, WrestleMania 35 has turned into just another episode of Raw, except the time has been doubled. I don't care about this show. And I think most wrestling fans right now are at best lukewarm about this show because they have done nothing to generate interest into the show anymore because it's been washed away. And it's a damn shame because as a wrestling fan, I want so much better from WWE because they should be better. NXT TakeOver, the one match from NXT TakeOver, I guarantee will be better than the entire 6 to 8 hours of WrestleMania combined. But instead, we're going to get a 6 to 8 hour show that is going to have maybe 30 minutes of really good content. Maybe an hour at best, because I do not believe that the show is going to be amazing. And if I go watch it next Sunday and I am amazed by it, I will make a separate video on Monday after work saying how amazing the fucking show was. But I'm expecting to make a show for the Saturday Morning Soapbox after WrestleMania and say exactly what I'm about to say here. Why did I just waste half of a day on this piece of shit? That's what I fully expect to say. So I'm going to take one drink of water and then I'm going to finish off the last subject here. So 48 minutes in. Should take about 10 minutes to go through this. I want to quickly review Horizon Zero Dawn because I finally finished it. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you still haven't played the game and you don't want to be spoiled on a game that's now about 2 years old, this is the point where I'm going to say goodbye because I'm going to talk about everything about the game, including the story, because I'm going to kind of sift through it because I don't think I need to spend too much time on it because the game is 2 years old. I don't think I need to tell a lot of people about, how the game plays. So if you're leaving because of the spoilers, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Now, I tried playing Horizon way back when, and I got frustrated. And I said this either the last show or shows before, that my time is different, so I can't spend it, or at least I don't want to spend it having to learn all these systems and getting impatient and all that kind of shit. So I decided to try it again, figuring maybe I'll have a little bit of better time with it. Now that I'm in a better mood, because when I first tried to play it, I was still in that miserable, sort of bad space that I was in. And I tried to play it again, and I remembered exactly why I liked it. I really love Aloy. Aloy has become one of my favorite characters in gaming, and she may be my favorite female character in all of gaming now. I love Aloy. But the second that I started going out into the world, the second you were made a seeker in the game, I was bored in terms of the gameplay, because on normal, it takes way too long to kill things. And I got frustrated. And I was in that same spot of just not wanting to go. I got further the first time. I got it to about as far as when you start seeing the bellow backs. And at that point, I'm like, crap, I need to do something or else I'm never going to finish this game. So I did something that is probably going to make a lot of people be like, oh, come on, really? I put story mode difficulty on, which, if I remember correctly, I'm going to quickly Google it to see how big the percentages were. But it was ridiculous in terms of how the damage gets changed. Let's see. I don't think it says the numbers. If I remember correctly, though, you do 400 times the damage, and I think the damage to you is at about 10% of what it normally is, which makes sense because every time that even the biggest things hit me, it was only taking 10 to 20 bits off my health out of like 500 something. The second I turned it over, I was having the best time of my life playing that game. Not because it was easy, but because I was allowed to just go and have fun with it rather than worrying so much about pre-planning everything and whatever else not. Like, I like the stealth part of the game, don't get me wrong. The reason that I stopped and switched to story mode difficulty on the second run is because I was at a point where I needed to kill a few scrappers. And in order to beat them, I was trying to hit them with arrows from a distance so it didn't attract attention. And what I'd have to do is hit them once and hide. Wait for them to stop looking, because the second you hit them twice while they're looking, they're going to see you, and then they'll run at you, and then game over. You're now in a sword fight. With story mode on, I just hit them in one spot in the weak point, and they're basically done. All the smaller stuff. Then you get to things like the Stormbirds, like the really big ones, the Stormbirds and the Thunderjaws. You also get to the Bellowbacks and other such enemies. And there does take a few more hits here and there. The Shellwalkers I really enjoyed. Those were fun to shoot. And the longer that I played it on story mode, the more that I got sucked so in. And I did what I normally do in those kind of games, which is completely skip Meridian and did everything else. So that and the reason that I did it is so that I could finish the story really in one fell swoop. And it took me 2 separate sittings and within 2 days to do it. But I spent a good couple of weeks with the little bits of time that I have, in between work and sleep, and doing a few of the collectibles here and going around the map, doing a few things there, And then finally I got to the main parts of the story, and I loved it. The characters are great. The points where you're exploring the ruins and getting a real sense of what happened to the planet before everything goes on, how you are basically the present day Elizabeth Sobat, and all the stupid things that happen to lead to basically human genocide. All those ruins and all those missions specifically are some of my favorite things, because the way that they gradually showed everything to you was amazing. And it opens every once in a while I would have that moment where I'm like, oh shit. I mean, I knew pretty much what was happening, and then once they show the extent of it, and you're like, oh damn. And then by the end of it, I was relatively satisfied. The ending was playing on story mode makes the final boss really funny, because it's just another destroyer just at really close range. Or sorry, not a destroyer, a Deathbringer. But it was really easy to kill again, because it doesn't take that long. And now we know that there's a second game, because there has to be, because as shocking as it is, Silence betrays you and takes Hades for himself. And that's probably going to be what we do in the second game. But that was such a great story, and I really enjoyed the fuck out of it. And playing it on story mode allowed me the ability to just chill. I should have tried easy just to see, but at that point I'm just like, dude, if I should just throw on story mode just because it will just be fun, and I won't have to worry about overly planning and having to be worried about resources and everything else. I had the best armor sets from the very start. Like, I had most of the purple sets of armor before it hit, level 20-ish, because the resources I was collecting was just doing so much, and I was selling them so fast and getting everything so quick that it was just perfect. I could have all the fun stuff. I looked cool, and everything was good. So by the time that, everything got serious, I was ready to get serious, and I'd done all my fun frolicking and being an overpowered jackass and whatever else. Overall, the game is still one of the better games I've played in a while in terms of single-player epics like that. Open world games have been struggling with me lately, and that game has been nothing short of fantastic. And I'm really glad that I had a little bit of time to go back and play it, and also the wherewithal to try the story mode difficulty, which thankfully they added because it wasn't there originally. Thank God they did that, because I may not have finished the game otherwise, which means I never would have gotten through that story that I really enjoyed and quite possibly have found my favorite female video game character of all time now. So, if you haven't gotten a chance to play the game, and it's cheap as fuck these days, do it. And if it's even just remotely challenging for you and you're not sure you want to go to that extent, if you're not trying to be like the guy who learns everything and goes to all these exorbitant ways to, beat enemies without, getting alerted and stuff like that, you put on story mode and just have a blast being an overpowered bitch, and it's fun as fuck. I would strongly suggest picking that game up, and I'm so happy that I was able to actually get through it, because I was worried as I kept looking at it on my shelf that I'm like, man, I'm never going to get to this game. And now I finally do, and it's done. And if they do reveal Horizon 2 coming out as a PS5 game with the crazy tech that they got, I can't wait. And lastly, I guess talking about the PS5, it's going to be weird when we finally get that announced, because this is going to be the first time that I'm actually legitimately paying attention to a next generation. I was more than happy staying on a 360 for a while when I was in that point, when they moved from 360 to Xbox One and PS4. I knew I was going PS4 regardless, because the way they showed the Xbox One in the beginning pissed me off so much that I'm like, nope, sorry, Microsoft, you lost me. I'm going back to Sony. Also, I think I plan on it anyway, because Sony has the Japanese market, and Persona 5 was going to be on PS4 anyway, and I wanted to play Persona 5, and I'm certainly not going to own two consoles, so I can do both. The PS5 is going to be a weird scenario for me, because I'm going to want it right away, but I'm going to want to wait a year so that the first shipment of models that may have issues with it are done, or like out and gone. Not to mention that I would like to see what direction they take things in, because most of the games they'll release on PS5 will probably be on PS4 as well. But there might be a few games that I really want to play on PS5, but if I wait a year, by the time that I get the console, they'll also be cheaper, and I can just go ham on it for a while. And if that backwards compatibility really is a thing, then maybe I make the switch immediately and just wait for that first immediate shipment of consoles to go away. So if there's any issues with the defaults, then it's good. Then we're good to go. But it'll be really interesting. If the PS5 truly is backwards compatible in every way, then I got no excuse not to go that route, because most of my games are Sony. I got PlayStation 1, 2, and 4 games. I have a couple of 3s, I think. I just don't know where they are. But the ability to be able to do all of that is incredible, if that's the case. If they really do come out with a fully backwards compatible PlayStation console, that's the future right there. To be able to play anything that I've owned. And that would be amazing. And it'd be pretty hard to wait. But I know I can. I can wait until, they're not selling out every single day. Wait till let's assume it comes out in the fall. Just wait till February when I get my birthday money and just go ham and get one. Who knows? But either way, it'll be interesting to see how that goes on. And hopefully Horizon 2 is the thing that's on that horizon. That's a terrible pun. Hopefully Horizon 2 is on the horizon for that console. But oh my God, that's fucking terrible. Anyways, that's all I got for this week. So I'm glad that I kind of got this over with. That way I get all this flushed out before any other of the craziness happens in the next week. Here's hoping WrestleMania doesn't suck. Good Lord. If you're a wrestling fan, we need to pray together that the show isn't going to be terrible. At least we know NXT is going to be good, right? So anyways, thanks for watching the podcast, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you enjoy all this stuff, there's plenty more where that came from. You also have the blog page at askcsradical.com. Enjoy the very few hours left in this weekend since I'm so late on this show, but it is what it is. And as far as I know, I will see you next Saturday morning for the Soapbox at the proper time. So with that being said, as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.